Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Purpose with Dr. Robin podcast. I'm so glad you're here and you take time to listen into the podcast. And because you've been such a faithful listener to the podcast, you helped us get ranked in the top 5% of all podcasts globally, according to Listen Notes. So thank you for doing that. Really appreciate you. And if you would, please, it makes a difference. Rate, subscribe, review the podcast. It really will help us keep going. All right. Now, today, I'm very excited about our guest for today. I'm talking with Sabine Schoepke. She is a dynamic entrepreneur with over 35 years of experience, now dedicated to helping others redefine midlife and create aligned financial freedom. A trailblazer and disruptor, Sabine sold her latest company and retired at 51, shifting her focus to guiding others. Her journey spans 7 businesses. That's right, 7 businesses, a best-selling book, and professional bodybuilding, all of which fuel her unique, authentic coaching style. She empowers clients to embrace true success grounded in alignment, purpose, and joy. Welcome, Sabine.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
So glad you're
Appreciate it.
here.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited that you're here. Okay, so now you heard me just give a sort of official bio introduction, but why don't you tell us in your own words 2 things, a little bit about you and then the work you do currently.
So, I'm originally from Germany. I left Germany when I was 17 and went to Canada on my own, and I went to school there. And by the time I was 20, I was homeless. And I started my first company about when I was 21 on a park bench in Toronto. On Young and Bloor, I started my first business, and I've been going ever since. Um, I fell in love with, seeing opportunities, connecting the dots, and doing one business after another, and starting, scaling, and selling companies. And then at 51, I sold my last company, and I kind of hit a wall a little bit, like of realization. My kids had twins and they graduated high school and they both left for Europe. And so all of a sudden I felt like I was without an identity. I had no more business and I had no more kids. The house was empty and there was no lack of opportunities that I saw, but I was burned out. And so I decided to stop it all, and I got rid of everything I owned and I sold my house, all my belongings I gave away. And 6 months later, I put myself on a plane to Europe, and I put myself on a mountain into isolation for 10 months to reassess, redefine, realign my life and to see what I wanted to do with that second half of my life. And I came back last October and with a really clear vision of wanting to help others do
Mm.
what I have done in my life, which is I know how to make money, I know how to see opportunities, and how to do that with great passion, and yet not burning the candle from both sides, because that easily happens and it happened to me on numerous occasions. But I've developed frameworks, which I only really realized once I gave myself a timeout and I took a step back and I was like, what did you do? Oh my gosh, like, how did you get here? So I've put it all together and I thought, oh my God, I can share this lived wisdom with others to help them get to where I'm at, to a place where it's like you're in alignment and you're free, whether it's financially free or emotionally free. And yeah, it's a really good place to be in and to share that with other people. And I'm very passionate about that now.
Yeah, what a tremendous gift to be able to give people. But I mean, you said a lot there, so let's back
I
up some.
know.
That's a lot of nuggets in there. The thing that stands out, I'm imagining somebody's listening say, "Did she say she left everything and went away for 10 months?" Yes. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the moment. Well, maybe not the exact moment, but how you came to that decision. You kind of said it quickly, like, yeah, I made the decision and I did it. But talk about that process.
So I realized I actually what was the decisive moment for this was I found an old vision board. I was underneath a like a console and I pulled it out and I found this vision board and I looked at that and I realized, oh my God, everything that's on there has been checked and then some. And instead of feeling like really happy and celebrating, like, oh my God, look how far you've come from a park bench to all of this. And I got depressed. I was really depressed. I got really upset and it took me a moment to realize because I it became clear that like my North Star, my vision, my dreams that I had were like they were like soap bubbles. All of a sudden it was all gone. I didn't know what to strive for anymore. And I realized that everything I had achieved really wasn't that meaningful. Like, sure, yes, like I wasn't homeless, but there's a lot of gray between being homeless and like having it all and then some, like when is enough enough? And I really struggled with that. And it took me a little while. I then became really, for a few months, really obsessed with bodybuilding because like, oh, there's another goal. Oh my God, you can look like Iron Wonder Woman in your 50s, So I really put, but then I was like, this is crazy. Like, why am I doing this? And that was really the decisive moment. And then I realized you got to let it all go, like strip it all away, all of it, the fast cars I love, the nice big house, like it was meaningless. So why not let it all go and say, okay, like put yourself somewhere without all, because it's distractions. It's like that's what I realized. All of that was distractions to like just walk into a dealership and buy yourself a new car because you're bored. Like that's basically what happens, right? Like nobody needs a new car like that. It's ridiculous. So I was like, I'm gonna give it all away. I'm gonna start over. And I was in isolation. Like I went into this tiny little village high in the mountains in Germany. There was no street names. There was nothing. There was no stores. There was nothing. And I sat there and it was really hard at the beginning. I cried. I cried probably like on and off for 6 weeks. I was like, what did I do? What
Oh,
did like, but I think it was more withdrawal from the life that I knew, like the social stuff, the fun I had, but that still bottom line, it was also temporary, like I knew it didn't fulfill me, but yet um I remember when I got there, the first thing I asked the person who rented the place to me, I said, where's their gym? And she's like, a gym. And it was like way far away. And I actually drove there and I was like, what am I doing? I'm just relocating myself geographically, but now I'm like recreating the life that I had. Or I went out and I bought a bottle of whiskey and then I came home at night and I looked at that whiskey and I'm like, we're not doing this. We're not distracting ourselves anymore. We're going to sit with the pain of and see what comes up from that. And that was, yeah, it was needed. It was so needed to let it out. I took the bottle of whiskey, I poured it down the drain. I didn't go work out like that anymore. It's just, yeah, it was needed to kind of get to the bottom of it all and say, okay, you know what?
yeah. How'd you find the house if it was up there in the hills with nobody around? Like how did you
I
even
found it online.
decide where? Oh, okay, go
No,
ahead.
it was funny because I went to the next bigger town and I said, I need a rental. And they just started laughing at me. And they're like, who are you? Like, and they could tell by my accent, even though I speak German fluently, but I had like after 30 some years, it has a little bit of an accent. So they're like, and they looked at my hair and my tattoos, and they're like, no, lady, there's like somebody needs to die before something becomes available. And then there's 10 other locals waiting for a place. But somehow, and that's just, I think, like in my life, like things just work out. And I found this little furnished part of an old farmhouse in online. And I remember I took the train and the bus to it. And I showed up and I was like, yeah, that's fine. It's whatever. And yeah, she's like, okay, you can.
That that's
And so
amazing. That's
I rented.
amazing. Okay, now I want to go back to some. We might come back to this too because I'm fascinated by the whole story, and we've had some of this conversation before. But all right, you said in the beginning because some people might be wondering because there's so much in there that you kind of said it quickly.
Yeah.
You said that at one point you were homeless.
Mhm.
How much time between being homeless and being in that house by yourself on the top of the hill in
Oh,
Germany?
uh
Decades, months,
that was
weeks,
like
days?
30 some years.
Okay. So that was your journey had brought you. So you had
Yeah.
you learned success, and then when you got to the point where the success sounds like felt excessive to you, you were
Yeah.
kind of
I mean, there was, there's like peaks and valleys and all of it, but generally it was up. But there was times in between where I really hit rock bottom, where we had a massive house fire, we lost everything, and that like started over again, or I left the father of my children. I left him and I left him pretty much everything. And I said, just take care of the kids financially, but I don't want anything from you. And I started over again. So there was, peaks and valleys to this. And um, just the way life goes, like
Mm,
things happen. But the I recently did a little exercise and I did like a timeline of my life and I looked at all of the different various events of my life from what I just mentioned to cancer to a home invasion where I was brutally attacked and I suffered
mm,
from PTSD for a while. Like there was so many events and I listed them all to and then what? And I realized I looked at this and I connected the dots and I was like, wait a second, because of what happened this came about. And it wasn't despite of it, but it was because of that. So, like the very beginning with sitting on this park bench and being homeless, and like there was no question in my mind, oh, we're gonna do something. Okay, what am I gonna do? And I had ideas that popped up, and the most tangible one was like, okay, I'm gonna do that. There was no question in my mind that I was gonna do something or that it was gonna work. Like no, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And it's going to be fine. So there was always every single major event in my life led to something amazing.
mm,
And so, people often say to me, oh, whatever you touch turns to gold. Well, and then they say, oh, you're so lucky. It has nothing to do with luck. I believe that today because as I really did the research on my own life and what got me through and to understand how my brain works and how I respond to disaster or catastrophe is I realize is often very different than how a lot of other people respond to it. Like I might be down for a moment and I might not be happy with what's going on, but I'm really quick to be like, okay, so what are we going to do with this? Like, not the victim mode of, oh my God, I just got beaten up and like attacked in my own house, but like, yeah, that sucks and that really hurt. But I am not going to go down. Like, I started to, I had PTSD. I started drinking really heavily. I didn't know how to deal with this. I'd never experienced anything like it. But then there came a point where it's like, I'm not going to let them win.
mhm,
No. What am I
mm.
going to do about this?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
because of that, I discovered working out, like really seriously working out. And I became a professional bodybuilder at 51. I was in the best shape of my life, and it turned my whole life around when it comes to lifestyle and living healthy. So yeah, it's really amazing to
yeah,
like really take a step back and see the full picture and say, wow,
yeah.
okay.
So it sounds like you're saying part of your ability to to be resilient after those major events and the way you chose to bounce back or act helped you move forward each time. Now, what if you could say, if you feel comfortable saying, what circumstances led to you being homeless? Because I think many people don't hear from anyone who's been homeless in any way, right? And so just how does that happen or how did it happen for you? If you feel like talking about that, you don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, there was circumstances in Germany that I had to leave
Wow.
at 17, and I had to really save myself. So I left.
Okay.
And it wasn't by choice. I was never a rebel. I've never done like I yeah, and in really hard situations, I probably drank too much, but I've never done drugs, anything like it. Like it wasn't anything. I didn't have like mental health issues that I ran away or anything like that. It was nothing like that. It was really like you got to take care of yourself. You got to get away, and so that's
Yeah.
led to that.
How long after that to your first business?
So I left at 17, and then I went to a high school there in Canada, and then I started to put myself through university. And so it was, I want to say, 4 years um, when I started my first, like 4 years in Canada when I started my first company.
Yeah, that was a short amount of time.
Yeah,
How did you come to start a company? Because you could have gotten a job and
I
probably
couldn't, no, because I had no work permit in Canada. So
ah
I could do a little at the beginning in university. I did a little TA jobs in the German department. Like I was allowed to do that, and I helped people with the German homework, and I made some money with that. But it wasn't enough. I had a scholarship at the beginning because I did really well in school, and but then I was like, okay, now what? Like, where am I gonna go? How is this gonna go on? And so for me, it was like, well, you got to make lots of money. Like, just make it yourself. And if you have a company, then you're gonna get a permit, like a green card kind of thing. And that's what it was. So I started that, and then everything changed. I became
okay.
like legally working and all of that. So yeah,
All right. So you decided, well, I have to live. And the way to live is to start my own company.
yeah.
Now, how did you decide what kind of company you would start?
Oh, that was easy because I had come from Europe and I was in North America, and like every time I had gone back to Germany to visit, um, my friends in Germany would be like, "Oh my God, can you bring me Levi's? Can you bring me this? Can you bring me that? Can you bring me peanut butter?" And I was like, "Wow!" Like especially when it came to Levi's, the pricing was so different. I saw opportunity there where I was like, "Wow." That a pair of Levi's retail in Canada is cheaper than wholesale in Europe. That makes no sense. Like I could buy retail like crazy and just ship it over there and still make a great profit. And that's what I started doing. Like I initially went from store to store to store, and then I started to make deals with Levi's retailers and say, okay, can you sell me a little more? Like a container full. And and then I was looking for partners to help me out. And I was very lucky always that I found people who believed in me and were like, yeah, I'm gonna support you. I'm gonna help you. And like the forwarding company, I remember I had an appointment with them, and my goal was to like get a little space at the airport in Toronto. Back then, it was different. Like that was a long time ago, so the security wasn't like it was today. So they ended up giving me a little space at the airport, like right by where the airplanes were, to put all my merchandise, to collect it and repackage it, and then they would ship it for me, and they would wait until I would get paid so I could pay them. Like
Oh,
I
wow.
I was very lucky that I always met the right kind of people to, like I said, to believe in me and support me a little bit. And years later, I went back to the gentleman I talked to back then. And I said, "Oh my God, like, why did you believe in me?" And he's like, "You had a good idea, and you sounded like you knew what you were doing." So he's like, "It wasn't a big risk." Yeah, of course. So
He
yeah,
believed your belief and your
yes, he
confidence.
did.
Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, so that was your early company. Let's fast forward now to the most recent one, before you took off to go to Germany.
Yes.
What were you doing then?
So that one came about because we had a house fire and of a house we were building to sell. And we
Oh,
had all of our money in there and like all of it and other people's money. And um, just when contracts went out, kids broke into it, had a party in there, and by accident put it on fire, and the whole thing burned down.
mm,
And so everything, all of our money, everything we had was in there, and that was that. And then the insurance, they're allowed to take 365 days to get back to you. At 364 days, they got back to us and basically paid us nothing. It was because there was a clause in there under which they were hiding, and insurances are not meant to pay really. I found out. And so that was that. And it was devastating. And it was just when just it was happened in 2007, so a year before the whole real estate bubble burst. Um and so we lost that and then money on other properties. And we were completely bankrupt. And we had lawsuits because of the fire, because it was such a big fire and affected so many people. And um it was such a hard time. It was so, so difficult. And my kids were really little. And uh, for myself, I started to create these little pendants that, like, every day I could pick from a pendant that I had hand stamped and that, like, with words that were really meaningful to me and reminded me of how blessed I was that I had these beautiful children and how blessed I was to be healthy. And so I could count my blessings with these pendants and I wore them and then people started to notice them and I said, "Where did you get this?" And I said, "Oh, this is just I made that for myself." And then people like in school, when my kids went to school, they'd be like, "Can you make me something? I'm struggling with something. Can I share with you and you make me something?" And I said, "Sure." And that's how it became like it was just a beautiful passion project of mine that, where I realized, oh my God, I can help other people with that. I
mm,
can make their burdens a little lighter by giving them something to hold on to. And it was beautiful. And I created a workplace for women where family comes first, where they can take care of their kids and yet have a job they're passionate about. We created works like in our office areas for the kids where they could come and like do homework, play groups. And so it was a beautiful, beautiful passion project. And again, see what happened. I mean, I went from like bankruptcy, losing everything to wow, I built this business because of the pain that I was experiencing. And whether to make money or to be able to do a job where I would still be there for my children to raise them, like it was beautiful. And I know it had a huge impact on hundreds of thousands of people who we created jewelry for and the people who have worked with me over the years. And so,
it's
yeah, that was
amazing.
was the last
That's
the last one I
amazing.
had. Yeah.
And it sounds like you had a beautiful location. I mean, you went from just kind of making them at home to growing to the point where you had an actual company with
Oh,
physical
yes.
location with people working in it and their
Yeah.
kids invited to join them. Yeah,
At some point, I think I had 10 women working for me, and they were all moms, and they all had each other's back. Like all positions were double stacked. So if one had to stay home because a kid was sick, the other one would take care of that load. And it was really a beautiful group of people. And yeah, it was awesome. It was
yeah,
absolutely amazing. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, your story is, I mean, it's inspirational to me. And I'm imagining it's inspiring people who are listening right now. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. I know I've said this to you before, and I'm not the only one. And I'll probably say it to you again at some point, at least
That's
two or three
nice
more
to hear.
times. This is amazing. And your heart and your ability, your compassion and generosity and just ability to say, I'm gonna I'm gonna not stay here. I'm gonna move forward. It's
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. All right. So would you say in the midst of all this, or let's say where you are now, do you feel like you
Mhm.
have purpose in your work?
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God. It's I came back off this mountain and I was like, I'm gonna help people. I'm gonna share everything I know. And it was funny because I came back, like south of LA, I came back here and I'm like, oh wow, this is not that easy. Like there's so many coaches out there, people are so jaded, and I had to I'm like, okay, I gotta find my way of doing this. All right. There's a whole new project. This isn't just handing out, free advice. This is like people are like they don't trust in like even free advice, They're like, whoa, what do you want? What are you trying to sell me? And I'm like, nothing, actually, nothing. Um, so that was interesting too. And I was like, okay, I had never done social media. None of my businesses relied on social media or advertising. It was all word of mouth, organic, me showing up at events and sharing with people. So I was like, oh my God, now I need to learn social media. And I started all these different platforms. And I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. This is so superficial. I don't want to make stupid videos. I want to share like value and from my heart and my soul. And long story short, I ended up wasting a lot of money on programs that did nothing for me and that really only showed me that this wasn't for me, except one platform. And it was LinkedIn. And I fell in love with LinkedIn. Like literally, I discovered how much I love to write, and I it was so in alignment with creating like heartfelt, soulful, long form content for me to share that. And it took me a little bit of time to open myself up to that and really share from my heart because I was always like under the impression that nobody cares, like nobody cares, and it was funny, like even when I went to Germany and I visited my parents, and my father said to me, he said, "Oh, I saw you on LinkedIn. Like, what are you doing there? Like, nobody cares what you think. Nobody cares what you have to say. You should get a real job." And I was like, sure. Okay. So I had to overcome that. And I feel like I had to lean in, like with every article or post that I wrote, I had to lean in a little bit more into being more vulnerable, like opening myself up more, sharing more from that place, like this personal place of how I felt about things and things I've experienced and perspectives, what they were based on and so on. So, and even to this day, I feel like every day there's just another percentage where I'm like, okay, let's be courageous. Let's do this. And yeah, I tried different things, and initially there wasn't really much that I got from that, like response wise. But I was very lucky. I was very fortunate again. The right person came into my life, somebody who had read my content, said, "Oh my God, I love your content. I want to work with you. Can I support you? Can I help you?" And I hired her as my assistant. And she's now really, I consider her my partner in this because she can finish my thoughts for me. We're on the same wavelength. It's just beautiful. And it was something I said, whatever I'm going to do next, I'm not going to do it alone, but I didn't know who I was going to find, in this. And so she's amazing. She's absolutely wonderful. And we can bounce ideas off each other. And we really, in November, we started and we like bit our teeth into LinkedIn and said, this is it. We're going to figure this out. Together, we're going to figure this out. And so now, like 3, 4 months later, it's like, oh my God, this is working. Like, and the beauty of it is, yeah, I get leads from it, sure, yes. But what's even much more meaningful to me is all the messages I get from people who are like, oh my God, you have no idea how you impacted my life, or you have no idea what this meant to me. Like to hear somebody else share this or struggle the same way, or your insight helped me. Like the feedback I'm getting on a really personal level is just so amazing. It's so beautiful. It's like, oh my God, it's amazing. It's just the best. And I know my choice to do what I'm doing right now is the right choice. I know I'm on the right path.
Yeah.
And, I'm very excited to see where else it's going to take me. And, I have little dreams and visions of what I want to do, but,
Yeah.
we'll see.
That's wonderful. It sounds like because we started this when I asked, do you have purpose in your work? And that's why you were sharing that. And it sounds like it's very meaningful for you and it gives you a sense of purpose to share from your experience in a way that touches the heart of others because you're sharing from your own heart in a real way and helping others to make the changes that they want to change, that they want to make. I think that's absolutely beautiful. So now let me ask you uh, to share some any you have such a wealth of wisdom from all the years that you've been learning, living, learning, living,
Yeah.
learning, living, learning. Uh, any from your personal or professional life. What's some piece of advice or encouragement you would say to a woman listening? And I'll describe who I think is listening, at least for the who the podcast is for. She's a high achieving woman. And by that, I mean she's responsible, um, doing lots of things, good at lots of things. People in her personal life come to her for advice, whether it's related to anything she knows or not. People in her professional life come, hey, I want to ask your advice, whether she knows anything about it. She's the one that people come to for support, and she's happy to do it. And she also is feeling like there must be more. I have the success, but I'm not fulfilled. And so I invite people like you to share your story and hoping that it inspires others because there's lots of things we can learn from other people's the journey that they go on. And so now, specifically, what's some piece of advice she's saying, everything looks good on paper, checked all the boxes, but there's something missing. What would you say to her?
So I am somebody who is willing to jump off the pier or into the deep end, right? And what that brings with it is that I don't have all the answers. Like I don't know. When I left for Europe to find the more for life, I didn't know where this was going to take me. I got rid of everything. I didn't know if I was ever going to come back to the US. A lot of people held that against me, said, how can you do that? What are you going to do? And I said, I don't know. I just know this one step I'm going to take right now. I know I need to disconnect from all the crazy, from all the distractions. If I really want to go deep and find out what is really next for me, like purposely, meaningfully, fulfillingly, like what's next. And so my biggest advice is don't try to get all of the answers. Like do one tiny little step at a time. Take inventory of, okay, what's feeling good? What's feeling good for me physically and what's not? Change that. Because I really do believe that our feelings are our superpower, the greatest power that we have. The feelings that are good and the feelings that don't feel good because they show us what's not right. So check in with yourself in three areas of your life. Put it into buckets and say, okay, what feels good physically and what doesn't? Maybe I need to take better care of myself. Maybe, as in, like get more rest, get more exercise, move more, spend more time outside. Check in with yourself and see what needs tweaking. And then look at your emotional and purpose part of your life. What feels good? Do more of that. What's not good? What's draining you? Start taking little steps, and you don't have to be radical like I did. Like you don't have to get rid of everything and go sit on a mountain. You don't have to do that. You can take tiny little steps that are really obvious. I need to drink more water, or I really enjoy volunteering here. Let me do more of that. But this thing over here that I'm doing, I dread it. And don't do it. You're not the one for the job. If it doesn't feel good, you don't. And yes, there's certain things in life we need to do, like, but even there, we can find the joy in it, like taking care of our families. Sure, it's draining sometimes, but there is a blessing in those things. I'm not talking about those things, you know. And then the third bucket is relationships. That's a big one because often I feel like we're surrounding ourselves with people maybe who we feel like we should surround ourselves because they're family or they've been in our lives for a long time, you know, and we're like, oh no, I can't let go of that. I had to let go of family. It's so hard, but you know what? When it's not good and it's toxic and people bring you down or weigh you down or try to keep you small, you gotta let it go. At least put boundaries into place where you don't expose yourself as much, where, you know, there's a little steps. Again, you don't need to be dramatic about it. Take little steps. And so look at those three buckets. Take little steps into the directions that feel good and take step back from the ones that don't feel good. And you will see that when you take little steps, the next one is going to present itself. Things are going to magically fall into place or show up in your life where it's like, oh wow. So it doesn't need big leaps and it doesn't need all of the answers. Don't wait for that. Take initiative, take inventory, and take action.
Mean. I mean, we don't have to say any more after that.
No, we're good. Okay, we're done.
That's right. That was a mic drop moment right there.
Yes.
All right. So I'm imagining now that whoever's listening, they're inspired. They want like, well, I want to hear more. How can I find about these LinkedIn posts or all the things that you're doing? Where can people be in touch with you?
So I have a website, which is thepowerlifecoach.com. And at this point, like I registered this website a long time ago. If I could do it over again, I wouldn't put coach on there because it's not really about that. It's about really at this point, just like giving, sharing, doing what we're doing, having conversations, having an impact. So I encourage anybody who's listening who wants to know more, reach out, have a conversation, send me a message. You will make my day. You don't have to sign up with me as a coach. You know, just let's let's do what we're all craving, which is build human connection and share our stories with each other because somebody out there who might need my perspective on something will have something that they can give me in return, a perspective, or if it's just the joy of communicating with them. So thepowerlifecoach.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Sabine Schoepke, as it's on your podcast. And
Okay, so
yeah,
spell your name for the people who are listening in the car or out somewhere.
okay. It's Sabine, Sabine, and then my last name is Schoep, as in Peter, Ke.
And they can find you on LinkedIn there and
Yeah, on LinkedIn.
the powerlifecoach.com.
.com. Yeah.
Thepowerlifecoach.com. Sabine, this has been just as I thought it would be.
Good.
Absolutely wonderful.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for sharing your heart. Your heart is very clear. We feel it. I feel it. I'm sure others feel it. And your generosity of wanting to give back after your hard won experience and success and now purpose. So thank you for being here and sharing with us.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Robin.
Okay, everyone, I'd love to hear your response to this conversation. And you can find me at LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time on social media. I'm on all the channels, but mostly LinkedIn at Robin L. Owens, PhD, at Robin L. Owens, PhD. Just send me a DM and just let me hear from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. And until next time, this is Dr. Robin.